super excited this morning to have Jeremiah Alleman and his wife Margaret here presenting on Mending.
To get started, I'm going to give a little bit of a history on how my wife and I got into natural healing. We were always relatively healthy growing up, and when we got married, we seemed to start getting sick a little more often, and we didn't really know why. We weren't quite sure what was going on. Margot's mother, she had a catalog from an herbalist in California. His name was Dr. Schultz, and we didn't think much of it. We put the catalog on our shelf and just kind of left it there. And about a year later, I was pretty bored, and I was just thumbing through the catalog and looking at some of his products and the claims that he was making, and I thought to myself, if these products do even half of what they claim, they've got to be some pretty awesome stuff. And so I decided to order what's called his superfood. It's kind of a green drink, and we also ordered the bowel formula that he has. And come to find out, like, those were, time went on, and I guess we weren't fully converted to the natural way of living, and we were still kind of getting sick occasionally. Time went on, and we ended up moving out of our apartment. We got a house, and as we were moving, we found that the apartment we were living in had mold, and so we kind of came to the conclusion that that was what was making us sick. Anyway, we moved into our house, and I still hadn't improved my diet. I was taking these nutritional supplements, but my diet was still something to be desired. So one day I ended up getting food poisoning, and it lasted a couple days, and I tried everything. I ended up drinking a whole bottle of Pepto-Bismol, and nothing was working. I couldn't keep anything down, and so my wife went to her mother's house, and they were looking through a book, and in there was just one phrase that said to take ginger for nausea. And so my wife came home, mixed up some ginger, and I drank it down, and within 15 minutes my stomach was settled, and after that it made me a believer, and I started making progressive steps to improve my diet from there. Bookstore when it was here in town, and I was looking for the herbal books. In the back of it, I wanted a book that had ailments that people have and an herb that they could reference, and then inside the book the herb itself and an explanation. And come to find out that that book did exist, and so it went on for a long way, and so I decided to look into who this Dr. Christopher was. And come to find out, he grew up in Utah, became an herbalist, moved away to a few different states, and he moved back and set up a school. And come to find out it was the School of Natural Healing. And so from there I decided to go to that school, and I've learned a lot since then, and it's just my life's passion now. Love natural. One day, my daughter, it was a year ago, and she was going down the stairs holding her mom's hand, or my wife's hand, and she was kind of going down the stairs goofy, like children do, not really wanting to stand up straight, and my wife kept telling her to stand up straight, and she didn't want to, and then she was about 3 steps to the bottom. She was almost to the bottom. She kind of let go and slipped and landed right on her elbow. So this is a picture of the x-ray. The x-ray was taken 3 days after she broke it. A couple days, or I guess after 2 days, which would make it 3. We noticed some bruising and some swelling going on, so we decided to take her to the chiropractor. We had a suspicion that it maybe broke because it showed all the signs of being broke, but we didn't want to pay, through the nose, a surgeon in the event that it wasn't broke. So we went to the chiropractor. He took an x-ray, and sure enough, there was the break. that it brings a better contrast. And then here's a zoom view of that same break. Normally the break should go and kind of connect down there. And so the chiropractor, he suggested that we do go to the surgeon. So he made an appointment, and I think he had a slot open right then, so we were able to go right over to the surgeon. We went there, and we had a little bit of time to discuss what our plan of action would be. Because seeing that x-ray, there's children who have had a lot worse breaks than that. But that is nonetheless significant. So we went to the surgeon, and he took other x-rays, and he suggested the arm to be pushed, and he wanted to put some pins in. Some removable pins, and have them in her arm for a couple weeks. 4 weeks is what he suggested, and then take the pins out, and then cast the arm for another 6 weeks. And I have had siblings who have had broken bones, and as well as friends, and I've seen what casting does. It makes the arm atrophy, and then there's even the healing of the muscles that need to happen after the bone is fused together. And understanding the principles behind healing natural, we felt confident enough that we could take care of that. It was relatively close to the growth plate, but it wasn't on the growth plate. So the doctor, the surgeon, in his line of work, he's going to suggest surgery. But having studied as an herbalist, I understood the principles behind herbs, and a person of their practice is going to suggest what their practice is. So we told the surgeon that we would like a removable cast. He didn't like the sound of that. He wanted it to be a full-on cast, not removable, and he didn't understand why we wanted the cast to be removable. We tried to explain, but he didn't want to hear it. But in the end, he gave us a splint, which this is what it was to fit on her arm, and then we were able to wrap it with an ace bandage and a few other things, and I'll get into the how exactly we did that. Anyway, so we were able to pack the herbs around it, and then 2 weeks after that, we went back to the chiropractor to do an x-ray, and the chiropractor saw that line there and that there, and he wasn't quite sure what that was, because it's not textbook normal, because normally with broken bones the idea is to fuse it together. But when I saw that, I thought to myself, I know what's going on there. Because you also have to remember that's three-dimensional, and so there's more going on than just a straight line. And I took that as being some significant bone regrowth. And so it was a proof to me that there was some healing going on. And so 3 weeks after that.
The reason we went and got a 2-week x-ray done is after we had put the herbs together and we were wrapping her arm, Mariah was screaming and crying while we were trying just to put it on her. And being a mom and frustrated with the situation, I told him, I said, you have 2 weeks to make this work. If it doesn't work, we're getting the surgery done because I want this fixed now. And so it's just kind of my lack of faith with it, and so we went and had the 2-week x-ray done just to see what was going on, to see if it was working.
So 3 weeks after that, making it 5 weeks after she had the break, that's now the bone regrowth going on. The chiropractor just put that line there just as an illustration of the alignment of the bones and how they should be, just as an explanation to us of what was going on. But we saw that after 5 weeks, and with any normal break, I believe it's 6 weeks. That's pretty standard for broken bones, but we did take her in after 5 weeks and have that taken. And we didn't want to put too much radiation in her, so this was the last x-ray we had gotten. But seeing the progressive steps of what had been going on, we were very confident that it was working. And we continued doing the treatment for a few weeks after that, and there was we applied the herbs externally, but we also had the same formula that was sweetened with honey and made into a syrup that she was able to take internally. And I'll touch on this a little bit more later, but all the systems in the body are connected. So more than just her arm was able to get healed and strengthened, but the rest of her body was able to receive nutrients as well. So there are some certain principles of health that we need to understand and put into practice before any amount of healing can be accomplished. To start with is we need to cleanse and nourish. A clean and properly nourished body assimilates better. When the body is bogged down with excessive mucus, it keeps the body from using the highest possible amount of nutrients from the food sources available, or toxic buildup. We can take in good, healthy food all we want, but we're only going to get a small amount assimilated, as opposed to if our bodies were in inorganic and organic sources. Inorganic sources come from processed and cooked food, chemically laced food, and rocks and hard minerals not intended for human consumption. There's a few rare minerals like sea salt that hasn't been processed, and a few rare things, but for the most part, humans are not built to consume rocks. Anyway, and then the organic sources are raw, whole foods, chemical-free foods, is the bowel, the main elimination channel. It eliminates solid waste. The second is the kidneys, which eliminate liquid waste material. The lungs, which eliminates mucus and gas. And the skin, which eliminates impurities and toxins. So how do we cleanse and nourish? First, we need to cleanse. We need to make sure that we're having regular bowel movements daily. And in the medical community, they feel it's pretty standard for people to have a bowel movement once a day, or even once every other day. That's pretty standard as far as the medical community goes. But in natural healing, it's understood that if a person is having a proper diet and consuming the right nutrients, that they should be having 3 bowel movements a day. Second, we need to be sure that we're urinating regularly, and with that we need to take in wholesome water sources. In my school it's taught to drink distilled water because it's a hungry water. As mentioned earlier, there's the inorganic and the organic minerals. Inorganic minerals are going to deposit into different parts of our body, in our joints, causing arthritis, in our kidneys, causing kidney stones, and a lot of other places in the body, leading to a lot of different complications. So that stuff does not assimilate into the body. Or distilled water is going to take those inorganic minerals onto itself and flush them from the body. Organic minerals will be immediately assimilated and become part of the body, where it won't be leached off by drinking the distilled water. The lungs, we need to be sure that we're breathing deeply. And with that, if we have to cough or sneeze, that's the body telling us that there's material in there that needs to get out, so we need to allow ourselves to let that out. And the skin, we need to wash regularly, make sure our pores are open, because the skin does breathing as well. And so if the pores are clean and open, then the body will be able to breathe more freely. And then we need to wear natural fiber clothing. A lot of people kind of feel that that's peculiar, but synthetic fibers kind of constrict airflow, but natural fiber clothing like silk and linen and cotton and wool, it's a breathable material, which again helps our skin breathe. We need to consume a mucusless diet. A lot of people also refer to it as a Mediterranean diet, and it consists of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. And I also put juices in there, making sure that they're fresh juices, and consume those in the organic form, meaning not laced with chemicals, whenever possible. Because when they've been laced with chemicals, we're taking those into our body as well, and we don't want that. We need as much pure sources. What herbs do we need to take daily to keep our bones healthy and strong? Start with horsetail grass, comfrey root, oat straw, and lobelia. These 4 herbs together are actually a formula called the Herbal Calcium formula. Horsetail grass, it has some calcium in, but it's not loaded with calcium. But it is high in organic silica, which through biological transmutation of the silica and other elements is able to be transmuted into assimilable calcium. There are certain vitamins that the body converts from one source to another, like beta carotene. The body converts into vitamin A, for instance. Now, horsetail grass with the silica, human bodies, specifically in our society, has plenty of calcium in them. In our society, we're not necessarily suffering and dying from conditions of lacking. We live in a society of excess, and anything lacking is probably because there's another area that has very much excess. And so you'll find a lot of people who feel that they're low in calcium, but actually they have enough calcium, even in the basic diet that they do eat, that there is enough calcium to be had. It just needs to be able to be assimilated, and that's the key. A definition of assimilation, I'll read that. It's the incorporation of nutrients into the cells and tissues of plants and animals, involving digestion, photosynthesis, and absorption. So we need to be sure that the material we're taking into us does assimilate. Another formula is wheat germ oil. That helps as a catalyst to help these herbs diffuse throughout the body better. Dr. Christopher's Complete Bone and Tissue formula in capsules, or just as long as you're able to get it in you. I had a friend who, he actually cracked a rib, and he was in quite a bit of pain, and he wanted to heal, but he took the Complete Bone and Tissue formula in powder form. You just put it in a glass, mix it with water, drink it. And then a green drink. I mentioned the Dr. Schultz superfood. But if you don't have that, then the very basic green drink would be wheatgrass juice, spirulina algae, and alfalfa. You can put other things like barley grass and carrots or beets or rose hips or various other things that are high in nutrients. So why do bones lose calcium? Well, improper assimilation for one. poor diet, drugs, pharmaceuticals, which are also drugs, and sugar. Sugar leaches calcium from the body quite a bit. Calcium is essential for metabolic function. An imbalance of calcium will bring adverse reactions when the body has plenty of calcium in the bones. The bones will store the extra. When the body needs calcium, it will take from the bones. So there's always a calcium exchange going on in the body. Calcium is essential for nerves, for muscles, for almost any.
I apologize, just one question. Why is calcium important for nerves?
Oh, because the nerve is comprised of a couple different layers. The very outer layer of the nerve is called myelin, or it's a myelin sheath, which is a calcium lining. Nerves are kind of referred to as, or illustrated as electrical wiring, and calcium would be the insulation around the electrical wiring. And so anybody who's familiar with electrical work knows that when the electrical wires get bare and they rub against each other, it starts to short circuit and blow fuses, and a lot of stuff can happen. So we need to make sure we have that insulated sheath on our nerves, which is what that calcium is. And that's why a lot of people really start having nervous disorders when there's so milk. Why it is not a wise source of calcium. And oftentimes that idea is a relatively controversial idea. Even when I was younger, I drank a lot of milk and thought I was being good and healthy. And as I got older, I wouldn't just buy the 2%. I would buy the whole milk, vitamin D, whatever I could get. Until I went to this school and started learning a little bit more. Then I decided to lay off of it. But even growing up, there was a lot of kids in my family. And like as a family, we would go through a gallon a day. My mom would buy groceries 2 weeks at a time, and so she would be buying 14 gallons of milk every time she went grocery shopping. Milk is intended for infant mammals. The mother's milk is alkaline, and from the milk, which is a blood transfusion, develops bones, flesh, cartilage, brain, and all normal functions of the body. The milk being alkaline is not only accepted, but is for the most part assimilated into the baby's system for good growth. When weaning time comes, the child's gastric juices are flowing so it can digest protein and starches on its own. When drinking milk, mothers or cows, at this time the milk changes from alkaline to acidic, being mixed with the gastric juices. And instead of the major part of the milk being assimilated, only a small portion, and only a small portion eliminated, with the gastric juices now altering the picture. We have the milk accepted into the body, but only a small part assimilated. The balance is accepted as mucus-forming material that makes for constipation, runny nose, infection, ear infections.
So is the age, are you talking about, 18 months average?
Yeah, in some of the books I've read, that's roughly around the time, but when the children cut their eye teeth, that's when the gastric juices begin to flow. Because they're able to digest, and that's just one thing that Dr. Christopher taught. So however long that might happen to be, some children grow their front teeth first, other children grow their eye teeth first.
So when the doctor is talking about milk, he's talking about raw breast milk as well as cow's milk. Did he talk about any studies where they compared pasteurized milk with raw milk and the body's assimilation of same?
Yeah, pasteurized milk. With ordinary milk, there's enzymes and cultures and various things to help with digestion. Pasteurization kills all of those enzymes, and which really makes it good for nothing. If a mother is unable to produce the milk necessary for her child, goat's milk is the most similar to mother's milk. So if you can get some raw organic goat's milk, if you're unable to provide milk for your own child, then that's probably the next best source to go to instead of formula.
Explain that for transfusion.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So milk is practically identical to blood, except blood has what's called red corpuscles, and when babies are born, they have the ability to produce the red corpuscles themselves. But you know, and then the mother, she's able to, you know, provide a proper bloodstream for herself through the diet she consumes. But the child, their life source is their mother, and when they eliminate, they're removing the toxic material, and then when they nurse, then they receive the pure blood transfusion from the mother, equal to the diet that the mother consumes. Does that answer it? So, sugar leaches calcium from the body. Even though milk has calcium in it, it also has lactose, which is a sugar, and leaches off more calcium than what you receive from it. That is why you'll find people who have osteoporosis, while at the same time they have bone spurs and calcium deposits and kidney stones and other things like that. I've come across a number of people who, you know, kind of have that imbalance going on, which again illustrates the improper balance of assimilation. The body's obviously getting calcium because it's depositing in areas of their body, but it's not going into the bones like it's supposed to. So, what foods do we need to avoid so that our bones don't deteriorate? Start with salt, eggs, sugar, milk, and flour products. All of those contribute to excessive mucus in the body, and as well as coffee, tea, tobacco, alcohol, things of that nature. It's very hard on the body.
All salt?
Well, good question. The iodized table salt, you know, for sure stay away from. But in moderation, sea salt to add for a little bit of flavor. But as far as sodium, sodium is essential. And organic sodium, celery is very high in organic sodium. So the reason people consume salt, for one, it adds flavor to food, and for two, you know, it gives them the sodium. But having it in excess, which in our society, excess is what's going on, to limit that. And all these things do need to be limited to some degree, because you know, even though I did mention milk earlier, in that it's not a wise choice, there are some benefits, especially like, but you need to make sure it's you know, raw and organic, whenever possible, and to not have a glass of it. So bone flesh and cartilage, it has a lot of different names. Also the complete bone and tissue formula, or BFNC. It's an aid for malfunctioning bones. It's excellent for varicose veins, sprains, curvature of the spine, tremors, skin eruptions, cold muscles, blood clots, calcium deposits, bone spurs, and other conditions in the body. So the ingredients for this complete bone and tissue formula starts with 6 parts of oak bark. Oak bark is an astringent and a tonic. Astringent is a substance that contracts the tissue or channels of the body, thereby diminishing discharges of mucus and blood. Tonic helps tone the body areas that it comes in contact with. Oak bark is serviceable when it's applied to bleeding gums and loose teeth, as well as many other things. In the book, there's a lot of different explanations of what it's exactly good for, and it's good for a lot of different areas of the body, but specifically for the bones. This is one contributing factor that oak bark helps with. Then there's the 3 parts marshmallow root, or mallow, or cheeseweed, that normal weed that you have growing in your yard. Growing up, I'd take the little cheeseweeds out and eat them all the time. Anyway, the root of that, 3 parts, and with measuring it, it can be however, just as long as it's parts. You can do tablespoons, cups, teaspoons, whatever volume you're making.
Is that marshmallow root?
Sorry,
Is
what?
it marshmallow root?
Yeah, marshmallow root. Oh, sorry, I didn't write that on there. It's a demulcent, which is soothing and often mucilaginous. Not mucus forming, but mucilaginous, which means it takes moisture unto itself, kind of becomes jelly somewhat, such as chia is also mucilaginous, or flax. And so you take that into your system and it helps bring moisture. And substances that are mucilaginous brings moisture even to your gut, so that your gut or intestinal tract is where a lot of the assimilation happens in your body. Dr. Christopher referred to a job that he had, that they had a glue pot, and over time the glue would build up and to where the size got smaller and smaller, and in order to remove the glue from that pot, they had to soak it with water for quite a while, so that there'd be more room in that pot. And that's kind of similar to our digestive tract. There's a lot of toxic material in there that, when it's removed, as mentioned earlier, we're able to assimilate. And so to get moisture in there, water is a great solvent. So to get the moisture in there, it helps break things up and to eliminate from your system. In that way, taking it internally, it'll help with that. But also applying it externally, it's good for even the smaller plumbing systems of our body. High in organic oxygen and pectin. Oxygen is a very great healer. Dr. Christopher often referenced or referred to apple cider vinegar being almost pure oxygen. Apples are very high in oxygen, and he said you could take any disease, bacteria in the world, and set it on a glass of vinegar, and by the time it got to the bottom, it would be dead. That's the healing power of oxygen. So with this being high in oxygen, it will help heal in that way. Next is 3 parts mullein herb. Mullein grows pretty high, and it's got really big leaves and soft. It's also an astringent, and it's a valuable glandular formula and useful in bringing down swelling. And so when there are broken bones, there is a lot of swelling that happens, and so that will help bring the swelling down. The next is wormwood, which is in the sage family. It's an antispasmodic and vermifuge. Oftentimes with broken bones, there's spasming going on. So we need to calm that spasming down. And as a vermifuge, it helps to eliminate parasites from our body. A lot of times also when there's not assimilation happening, there's the possibility of the body having parasites, and so it helps to eliminate that. It's often used externally as a fomentation in rheumatism, swelling, and sprains. So it's a quite valuable herb. And one part lobelia. It's a nervine, an antispasmodic, and a catalyst. Dr. Christopher referred to lobelia as a thinking herb. When you consume it, it'll go to the part of the body that needs the healing. There's an herbalist that lived around the time of the founding of the country. His name was Samuel Thompson, and he didn't necessarily discover lobelia, but he learned for himself at a young age the medicinal benefits of lobelia, and the list is endless. This book I have, the School of Natural Healing, it devotes an entire chapter specifically to lobelia. Again, it is an antispasmodic, and it'll help calm the nerves as well. It's easily diffused throughout the body and utilized. It removes obstructions and congestion within the body, and especially the blood vessels. It's really good for the lungs when taken internally, and the bronchial tract. But as a catalyst, it helps tie all the herbs together so that they'll go to the area that they need. The next is skullcap, just one part of that. It's a tonic, a nervine, and slightly astringent. It's useful in nervous exhaustion. Skullcap has been one herb that's been very helpful for my mother. About 12 years ago, she was in a car accident, and she got really busted up, and she actually shattered 2 of the vertebrae in her neck. The doctors were quite surprised that she didn't die. Those are usually the bones that break when people are hung, but the doctors ended up fusing her neck with some rods, and they had to slightly turn her head down, so she can't turn her neck anymore, so she has to kind of turn her body to look. But she's able to walk still, which is also surprising that she's not paralyzed from the neck down. But as time has gone on, well, the main channel of nerves goes right through the spine. It ties in with the base of the neck, and so she has a lot of nervous exhaustion because of that. And so she's been able to use the skullcap as we become familiar with it, and that really brings the exhaustion of the nerves. It helps level it out. Like, it doesn't take it completely away because of the nature of her condition, but it does help her, to a great degree. So I really like that herb, for that reason. And then 6 parts comfrey root. Comfrey is a very special herb, and it's actually kind of a pretty controversial herb too. And I'm going to read a little bit about it. It's a cell proliferant, which means it will help the healthy cells multiply faster. But the unhealthy cells, or even cancerous cells, it won't multiply those. So it's able to increase. Also, yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that, Sad?
Okay, well, that's what I was taking. Okay, so this is a complete bone and tissue salve. It's the same formula that we're talking about, has the same parts and everything. The salve helps rebuild skin. It's the same salve that on day 7 of my daughter's healing, we would massage it on her arm, and it helps speed up the healing from another external point. So you're welcome to dig into it, put some on your hand, smell it.
It's got these herbs, and then to put it into salve form, it has olive oil and beeswax to create the salve form. Okay, so comfrey says you could actually live on comfrey. It is high in protein and calcium. Comfrey is the fastest known builder of vegetable protein. It is one of the few plants that contains extractive vitamin B12 from the soil. It's high in vitamin A as well. Many other B vitamins are also contained in comfrey. In fact, there is research going on right now which considers comfrey as a possible answer to feed starving nations. We have also often suggested using fresh comfrey in a salad with other fresh green vegetables. When a transportation strike occurs and folks are not able to obtain some of the foods we are accustomed to eating, comfrey may save lives. It could be grown in every garden. It is a must. And our bone, flesh, and cartilage formula has comfrey as a base. It is available to use as a fomentation or an ointment. It is also to be used whenever there is an injury to bones, flesh, or cartilage. It penetrates through the skin, muscle, and even reconstructs bones that have disintegrated from disease when properly used. Then comfrey is also part of the herbal antiseptic healing tincture for wounds, sores, toothaches, and bruises. And the last is 3 parts black walnut. It's an astringent and a vermifuge. Its inner bark is also a fibrin solvent, muscle and nerve food, and a food to build hair, nails, and skin. As my wife mentioned earlier about my daughter's arm, that I forgot to mention earlier, is when we applied that formula to her arm, then we redid it every single day. Well, I guess every evening, and let it be on her arm while she was sleeping. As the fermentation, and we had our arm wrapped so that she couldn't move it. But for about an hour in the evening, we took it off and just let her sit while her arm wasn't casted, so that it could air out. And we did that every evening for 6 days. The arm. But first, we had these cotton strips that we put on a plate, and we poured the herbal formula over it, because with as much as we made, we put it in the refrigerator so it wouldn't spoil, because you have to simmer it down. Then we wrapped it around the arm. Even though it was up here, I'll just put it here to show.
And it was wet.
Yeah, it was wet with
So
the herbs.
we only put the herbs about halfway so that the rest of the cotton could gather the rest of the water and the liquid, so it didn't drip all over her clothes in the house and all that.
And then we got just ordinary plastic wrap, and then wrapped it around there to keep the moisture in there. And then this, my wife had the idea to go to the material store in town. It's called PLU material? PUL material.
It's kind of a waterproof material.
So after that, just in case any liquid kind of went out the sides, we were able to wrap it around. And they had different
We did it a little
pictures.
tighter than this.
There's different pictures like owls, but our daughter wanted monsters. So we did
She
what we
chose
could
monsters over butterflies and princesses.
but anything to keep her happy, because it kind of, her arm was in pain, and we didn't want her to suffer more than she had to, and so, any little thing to make her happy. And then
we put the cast on.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we put the cast on.
Doesn't quite fit.
And then we wrapped it with the ace bandage to keep everything in place.
Did you make your own cast?
No. She actually broke both of her arms within 6 months
Yeah,
of each other. This was the first one.
Oh.
The second one wasn't nearly as bad, but that was from the second arm. The first arm, we had to cut it every so often because it would rub on her wrist, so we'd cut it up just a little bit so she could at least use her wrist and keep her muscles used and strong. And so that is what we got from the doctor. That's the removable cast. I wanted something,
We've seen people have them before, like
well, I had one when I was younger. It was like a plastic cast that would Velcro on, so we wouldn't have to do the ace wrap.
Yeah.
He didn't like that idea. I didn't want to argue, so it was just, give us a removable thing, we'll do what we need to.
Yeah.
So on day 7, Dr. Christopher refers to body cycles, and more than just the body, but even the earth. And he referred to doing what you need to in 6 days and letting things rest on day 7. And more than just days, he said things go in cycle of 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, and 7 years. But with this being on a weekly basis, and even daily, we had the herbs on for 6 days. And day 7, we had the cast off and did what we could, to keep a 2-year-old, is calm. But we did apply the salve and some essential oils, and we did massage it. So the system was a little switched up on day 7. And with the massage, we were able to stimulate muscle action, because the one thing I didn't want is for the arm to atrophy, because every other broken bone that I've ever been familiar with has always atrophied. I had a sister who, when she was 3 or 4, she broke her femur bone, and there was a huge cast, like entire lower body cast almost. And when the cast was removed, the one leg that had the major portion of the cast was completely atrophied. She had to relearn to walk. And even though the arm is not the leg, I still didn't want that to happen. And understanding the principles of healing, when blood gets to an area in the body, it brings with it oxygen, nutrients, and healing. And if the bones are atrophying, that means there's not circulation getting there. And if there's not circulation, there's not healing. And so, knowing that healing needs to get there, we did that massage. We made the cast removable, so that the circulation could get there and healing could be quickened. So this is the list of the formula for the complete bone and tissue. You can soak the herbs in a combination of distilled water at the rate of 1 ounce of herbs to a pint of distilled water for 4 to 6 hours, and simmer for 30 minutes, strain, and reduce the liquid down to 1/4 its volume by simmering on low heat. That's what we did for that fomentation to create it into a liquid form. You can also mix honey with that and create it into a syrup. But Dr. Christopher has a syrup pre-made, and the wormwood, it's understood that it's very bitter. But if you can stand that, you can just put the powder straight and drink it down to take internally. You can make a poultice out of it, which we did also. We did a fermentation and a poultice, but the fermentation is the herbs themselves, and after the body absorbs the moisture and whatever else evaporates off, it becomes quite solid and can actually become a cast in itself, a cast of herbs, and you can just continue applying herbs to the top of it, and the body will take in whatever subatomic particles of those herbs that it's able to. And so, and then mentioned before also that the salve, you combine there's a few different ways. Dr. Christopher suggests soaking it in olive oil for 4 hours at a temperature of about 100 degrees. But I decided to let it soak in the olive oil for a few days, just at room temperature. And then you strain the herbs off and then add the beeswax. So how do we strengthen weak bones? Because that's also a condition. There's more to bones than just breaking them. As mentioned before, consume a proper diet. The herbal calcium formula mentioned before with the horsetail grass and the comfrey. The Dr. Christopher's bone formula and green drink. So procedures on how to strengthen bones. Chiropractor is always a good one to help realign the bones. Massage brings the circulation and strengthens the muscles. Exercise and yoga. And we always need to remember that the body systems are all connected. When you strengthen one area of the body, it's going to help out the other areas. If you increase your muscles through proper diet and exercise, your bones are going to be improved from there. And yoga, with the elasticity of the body, it's going to help the cartilage and the tendons and improve our health. So how do we mend broken bones? We've already mentioned some different procedures and herbs to use, but we do need to determine whether the bone is truly broken. There are different ways, different natural ways. Some people do dowsing or tuning forks, but then there's also the medical establishment. And modern medicine does have its place, and it does excel in emergency treatment and trauma. Use wisdom as to whether you're comfortable treating the condition yourself. If not, then let somebody who is comfortable, even if it does happen to be a surgeon. Wisdom is very important in providing the best possible treatment for yourself or your loved one. And if you choose to treat the condition yourself, you need to obtain the proper herbs and equipment necessary. And above all, the number one thing is you need to be committed. When my daughter broke her arm, it wasn't easy to make up the formula and to redo it every single night. It would have been a lot easier to get a cast, put it on, and forget about it for 4 weeks, take her back in, and then forget about it for another 6 weeks. That would have been the easy way to do it. Let the bone fuse however it does, and let it go through life with some scarred bone tissue. But a great thanks to my wife being very committed. Every single night, sure as clockwork, she was there to wrap the arm and make sure the procedures were done every day, in taking the stuff internally as well. And some days it was pretty stressful. Our daughter didn't want to cooperate all the time. We had to make it fun as much as possible. But even if she didn't want it, we had to find ways to get it on. We had to be committed. And through sticking to the program, we find that, that the